Hi there, good noon and welcome to yet another session on your own platform called BYJU'S Exam Prep. We help you move towards your dreams of building a great career at this very channel. My name is Vikrant. I am your personal coach for all things related to English communication and the psychological aspects of preparation. And today is the day when we start moving towards these other exams as well. So we've obviously started conducting sessions for the other tests, but then apart from the CAT, the other major exam that we write is XAT. So I've been getting a lot of questions about these different exams. Sir, NMAT में क्या अलग करना है, SNAP में क्या अलग करना है, XAT में क्या अलग करना है, and we do plan to address each one of these things at this very channel. And that is why it is important for you to subscribe to the channel so that you know whenever we upload a new video. So वो करिए, बेल आइकन प्रेस कर दीजिए, कुछ मिस नहीं करेंगे. और सिर्फ इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं, we'll go a step further and talk about the differences that exist, and maybe we will definitely also go ahead and work on some of the questions as well. So today the plan is to focus on XAT RC, but because you and I are talking about XAT for the first time, we will look at a slight overview before we dive into reading comprehension specifically. Victor, you got 18 in VR. ओए होए यार, 18 तो मतलब मेरी उम्मीद ज़्यादा है यार तुझसे. I would want you to get at least, I mean, our worst case scenario, through preparation, of course, we want to raise the ceiling. See, there are good days, there are bad days. You're not going to be consistently at the top of your game, but then the trick is raise the ceiling. Even on your bad days, you should go ahead and perform better. And that's what the goal is. So before we move further, a very quick reminder, dude, if you have not sat for the All India Open Mock yet, please do it, because you are not going to get the opportunity to do it tomorrow. Today is the last day of writing the All India Open Mock. So please make sure that you make use of this particular test. Even if you're preparing for 24, even if you're somebody who's not serious, who just wants to know the CAT, this is going to be an excellent opportunity for you to treat it as a diagnostic test and hopefully even benchmark yourself against the best. Right? So let us get into now XAT. So first up, we are preparing for the CAT, right? Or so you think, because the truth is, in my classes, I ensure that you're prepared for all the exams. But then what is new about XAT? What is different? And we are talking about it because when you focus a lot on CAT, all your test taking strategy, your improvement plan somehow starts revolving around that. So anybody, oh, Victor, 18 questions, man, that's fabulous. मैं बोल रहा हूँ यार, तू that you telling me you got 18, like 18 marks, and what is Victor so happy about? And that's weird. So what's new about XAT? I want 14 of them to be right in the next exam, okay? So what is new about XAT? Come on, tell me in the chat. What do you think? What is different when it comes to XAT? So let us see. You know the duration. What is the duration for the CAT exam? And what is the duration for the XAT exam? You notice this big difference there? Then CAT has 3 timed sections. Does XAT also happen to have 3 timed sections? So let us check. So first up, in case you have not looked at it so far, let me take you through the paper pattern of XAT. So of course the pattern that I'm sharing with you is based on the previous year's patterns. Things may change this year, but for the last 3 odd years, the paper has gone on to become very stable. So here is the pattern. So you notice, first up, there are 2 sections or 2 segments, part 1 and part 2. So the percentile that leads to the next round is the percentile that is given to you in part 1. Part 2 is not looked at in order to call you for the next round. The colleges may look at it subsequently while making you an offer of admission, but it's part 1 which determines your percentile. And part 1 more or less has the same 4 areas, right? Quantitative aptitude, data interpretation, logic and VA, but you notice how they are split differently. So LR is now there in the exam along with verbal. There are 26 questions. Quant and DI are together. So you have these 4, but then apart from these, you have a new segment altogether called decision making. So you need to, obviously, because it's an entire section, because it's like, you know, almost 1/3 of the paper, you need to devote a lot of energy, effort, attention on that, and we will prepare you for that as well, don't worry. The other curious thing is there is no sectional time limit. So when I look at the CAT, I don't even think of it as one exam. I think of it as 3 40-minute exams which are conducted back to back. But when it comes to XAT, it is a 175-minute exam in part 1 where there is no sectional time limit. Feel free to devote this time whichever way you want to each one of these 3 sections. So you notice that goes on to affect a test taking strategy significantly. It leads to a different way, a different approach of maximizing our scores. So those kind of things. And additionally, you have this part 2, which gives you general knowledge along with an essay. So all in all, you will be in the examination hall for more than 3 hours and you'd go through all of these different areas, different things. So if I look at the differences now, then obviously one difference is the difficulty level. I'm limiting myself to English. I'm not commenting on the entire section, although when it comes to difficulty level, it may also apply to QA. So the difficulty level of the XAT exam can be higher. Okay. So it can be higher than the CAT. Right? Although if I compare, if I look at CAT 22, if I look at the exams that were conducted last year CAT English actually happened to be slightly more difficult, just slightly, just marginally than the English given in the XAT, but normally on an average, XAT is the exam which is tougher. The second thing is duration, 2 hours versus 3 hours, 10 minutes, part 1, part 2, all that. Then addition of the decision making section, there is no sectional time limit, and then this is another one. So in CAT you are accustomed to looking at 4 options and then evaluating, but in XAT you actually have 5 options for every question. So that also introduces another change that takes some time to get accustomed to. For that matter, even Maharashtra CET will give you 5 options later. Okay. Then but then the calls also happen at relatively lower percentile. So in CAT you need to get 99.3 percentile plus to get a call. Here you can actually get a call from 97 percentile onwards. Okay, then apart from this, there is a different marking scheme. CAT has +3 -1. Here you have +1 and -0.25. So instead of deducting 1/3 of the marks, they deduct only 1/4 of the marks for making a mistake. So on the face of it, it may seem that, okay, you cannot take some extra guesses, take some extra chances, but then there are no negative marks in GK, by the way, okay? But then you also have this penalty for leaving questions. So in CAT, if you have left a question out, all you get is 0. In XAT, they start deducting 0.1 mark for every unattempted question beyond 8. So you are allowed to leave 8 questions. So let that sink in a bit. Akash, no matter which college you talk about, generally at least around 70–80% of the weightage is given to the stages that are still ahead of you. Okay, the written exam, the GDs, the interviews, the VATs, all that. It's only the remaining 20 that comes from your past. And in that remaining 20, since you are saying that you have average profile, it means that you'd get average marks. It does not mean that you'd get bad marks there, right? So I think you should just focus on that. Will gap be an issue? Yes, in the interview they are going to ask you all sorts of questions, but then we'll cross that bridge once we reach there. Okay, so don't worry much about it yet. Don't think much about it today, right? Okay, so moving on. So now that you know what is new overall, let us also dive into the differences that are specific to reading comprehension so that you can tailor or customize your preparation accordingly. So when it comes specifically to RC, let's basically dive across three different categories. The first is question types. Is there a difference in the type of questions that get asked in CAT and XAT? Is there a difference between these two exams? Normally, no. I mean, mostly you get the same questions, okay? So you'd still have those same main idea questions, the same reasoning based questions, particularly inference. You may also get those specific detail questions, so mostly the same. And therefore, if you're preparing for the CAT question types, I think you are covered for XAT, but there is one extra question type that appears in XAT in the RC section that you do need to pay attention to, and that is questions that are based on figures of speech. So you remember your simile, your metaphor, your anaphora, polysyndeton, all those things. So you're supposed to know your figures of speech rather well. So the moment you include this in your preparation, you are sorted. And thankfully, this is a purely knowledge-based area. And if you just go ahead and become better at identifying 15-20 of the most frequently used figures of speech, you should generally be good to go. So they don't really, at least in XAT, they don't always look for some very obscure figure of speech and use that to create questions. Okay, so that's one. Second parameter is the difficulty level. So this is something that I addressed even earlier. The difficulty level in XAT can be higher when it comes to reading comprehension. And the third thing is the subject matter, the areas where the passages come from. So at one level, the subject matters are the same, but then there is one very important difference, and that is, apart from getting passages as RC, XAT every year will also give us some poem as RC. So when it comes to passages, you won't find much difference in subject matters. You still need to be good at more or less the same areas. Although, if I look at the last few years of papers, I would say that XAT gives more importance to philosophy as compared to the CAT. So if you're not comfortable with philosophy, that's one area that you would like to become better at. But apart from that, I think, but then you are anyway going ahead and working on philosophy even for the CAT exam. So won't be that big of a difference or an addition per se. But yes, you definitely need to go ahead and become better at poems. And Akash had actually asked this question, how to tackle poem-based RCs. So first up, what do you think? How should we go ahead and tackle them? So when it comes to a passage, what is the first thing that you do? You read the passage. When it comes to a poem, what is the first thing that you do? You read the poem. Isn't it identical? But the only difference is, poems are not always direct. The meanings that poems transfer can at times be obscured by the language and the style. So what do we tell you for becoming better at any unfamiliar area? I tell you to read that area more often. Long form articles, books, poetry is no different. read more poems. But this time around the difference is, when you read a poem, I want you to read it aloud. बोल बोल के पढ़ेंगे. And don't worry about questions. Just soak in that experience. See, when a poet writes a poem, he does not think of the fact that, hey, someday the XAT guys may choose me as in their RC section. So the problem is, when you read poetry only for RCs, you fail to immerse yourself into that world of poetry. You fail to connect with the experience that the poet wanted to share with you. So that connection, establishing that connection, establishing that familiarity, that is important. And see, a poem can actually be interpreted in different ways. It all depends on the context, right? Nana Ranit, no. They don't ask you to answer any 2 or 3 of the questions. No, they typically give you 1 or 2 questions and you don't have a choice. I mean, you do have a choice. You can choose not to attempt them, but it is not that you have to attempt only one. What you're talking about is for the essay writing bit, where they give you multiple topics, you need to write on any one of those. So that makes your life a little easy. So please make sure that you start reading poetry regularly, because the context can lead to different interpretations, and that ability to deal with that ambiguity, that familiarity with insinuations and aspersions and indirect ways of stating things, along with loads of figures of speech that are used, that is going to, of course, come in very, very handy. So please make sure that you go ahead and deal with these things with greater care through building of that familiarity. But then if you look at the total number of questions, last year we have had 12 questions that were based on passages and 3 that were based on poem, out of a total number of 26 questions. So there were total 26. Out of that, 15 were reading comprehension, 3 belonging to poetry and the remaining 12 belonging to your conventional passages. Thereafter, of course, you had questions based on grammar. Then we had parajumbles. We had fill in the blanks. And we had direct critical reasoning questions. So that was the total composition of the section last year, and I hope that you are also focusing on grammar, vocabulary and critical reasoning as well. Otherwise, this could be a problem for you. So that's your total 26. So 15 of RC plus 11 of these. Done. So let's go ahead, and since we are talking about a poem, let's go ahead, read a poem, answer a couple of questions, and then we will move on. And I am mindful of the fact that you may not have read a lot of poetry yet, so I'll keep things simple, keep things easy today. I cannot promise that in the subsequent sessions. So here is a poem. Just read it and then we'll talk. So just focus on the feelings and the experience. And what did I tell you? Read it aloud. April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. I wonder, so when I looked at this cruelest, this was not cruel, but then mixing memory and desire. Now I know the kind of pain that the poet is talking about when he says cruelest. So focus on that. Go with that flow. Let me know once you have read it, and then we'll go over to the questions. Okay, fantastic. So here is the first question for you. The lines seem to be a part of which of the following? Go ahead and tell me, and tell me what your answer should be. Okay, so basically we go ahead and deal with what? Elimination. So let's look at A, Anglican burial service. Is there anybody who died and is being buried in the poem? No, rule it out. B says apocalyptic climax. What is an apocalypse? An apocalypse is a disastrous situation, right? Now, is there any disaster happening here? Even if you look at the end, so look at the first four lines. They are talking about the month of April. Then the author is talking about his take on winter. And then thereafter summer, and then a particular instance from the author's life. So I think the first four lines that talk about April seem to be a general comment on the month of April, but thereafter winter, summer, and that instance, all of them are talking about author's lived experience. You notice winter kept us warm, summer surprised us. April is the only one where we have where the author has made a generic statement telling you that April is some kind of month, but there is no apocalypse anywhere here. As Tarun says, end of the world. There is no apocalypse, so we can rule it out. Nihilistic epiphany. Epiphany is a sudden realization of a truth, and nihilistic is where you feel that we cannot know this world and all the social institutions and customs that we have mean nothing. So there is no nihilism shown here, so let's eliminate it. Sermonic discourse is where you lecture somebody about morality or religion. Does the poem do that? No. So let's rule it out. So the best answer choice is C, where barring the first four lines of April, everything else is a lived experience, right? So it can definitely be termed as an autobiographical snippet. I would have preferred calling it a reflection. Reflection because of the first four sentences. That will make it even better, because even when you reflect on something that you have lived, that you have experienced. So obviously reflections are in that sense also autobiographical, but considering that in every question we have to pick up the best answer choice, I'd have no hesitation in choosing C. Okay, and here is your next question. What do you think the answer should be? Which of the following lines from the poem are oxymoronic? So do you know what an oxymoron is? If yes, then go ahead and answer this question. Otherwise, take a guess. There is no negative marking here. Take a guess and then we'll see. So let's dive into what an oxymoron is first. Okay, so oxymoron is a figure of speech in which we use two contradictory expressions together for effect. Okay, so once again, what is an oxymoron? Is a figure of speech in which two apparently contradictory terms are used together. So any oxymoronic part or segment or idea will contain a combination of two contradictory or two incongruous idea. For example, let's look at it. You know, when we call somebody pretty ugly, look at these two words, pretty and ugly. Have you heard of this expression? Or maybe you have seen this one for sure. How about this sentence? He acts naturally. Acting and naturally. Give me an exact estimate. Chocolates are bittersweet. अरे मिश्रा जी, आपका मकान तो बड़ा छोटा है. बड़ा छोटा है. हाँ? Or how about we must believe in free will. We have no choice. Look at these two sentences. We must believe in free will. We have no choice. So free will. On one hand, we are saying believe in free will. On the other, is saying you don't have a choice. You have to believe in it. So they're kind of incongruous and contradictory. So those are the kind of things which are known as oxymoronic. And if you look at these 5 instances, there is only one that talks about two seemingly incongruous and contradictory ideas, and that's option A, because we are talking about winter keeping us warm. Yeah, absolutely. Rosé, open secret. Huh? Why do you have a diacritical mark on E? Style, huh? Because that affects the pronunciation now. I can't call it rose. It has to be rosé, and that suddenly reminds me of the wine. Anyhow, so that is why our answer here should be option A. So that's about your poem. Let's go ahead and get into a passage as well. What say you? Let's go. So here is your passage. So just read it. The moment you are done reading it, let me know and I'll take you over to the next paragraph. We'll read it paragraph by paragraph. Take a deep breath, get into the zone and get cracking. But you noticed an advantage of poem. The number of words are so few that you are able to go through them rather fast. So you can actually take time to read it at leisure and interpret it without worrying much about the time. But now over to the passage. There you go. Done? I'm sure by now you must have read it. It's just a paragraph. Then you can always use the seeker to come back to this. Okay, next. Sorry. Man. Okay. Next. Ready to move on? Tarun, banal basically means something which is ordinary, commonplace, not at all original. So that's banal. Banal is something which is so ordinary that it is not worthy of being remarked at. So when you say what we have to do with banal facts, such banal facts, banal is their ordinary, commonplace. Why do we even need to focus on these? Okay. So shall we move on? Here is the next paragraph. Yeah, Vishal, trite can definitely be used as a synonym. Done. Slightly challenging to read, I know. Okay, and here is the last paragraph. Okay, fabulous. So here is the first question based on the passage. What would you like to choose? What would you like to mark as your answer? So what's your take, guys? Okay, so Vishal and Akash have set the ball rolling. Now, if you want the answer to this particular question, you need to go back to the first paragraph. It says, this writer's surprise amazes me. So why is the author amazed? So although it is written, I feel skeptical about the assumption, it does not really mean that the author is skeptical by nature. He is skeptical at one particular assumption. Here is that assumption, that this question has been raised for the first time in 20th century. So the author refuses to believe that assumption. The author believes that this is a question that has been raised earlier as well. So it is not that he is skeptical by nature. He does not believe it because according to him, this is a question that has been raised in the past as well. And the idea, the answer choice that comes closest to that idea is option C, because questions on the notions of power have been raised before. I mean, it's just a paraphrasing of the last sentence of the first paragraph. You go ahead, deal with that, and you're done. Okay, so here is next. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the various options. So let us check. Now, the answer to this question lies in the fourth paragraph. In the fourth paragraph, the author mentions three reasons. Okay, so what are those three reasons? First, second, and last. So first is because the field has nothing to do with guilt or innocence. So what's the first reason? Nothing to do with guilt or innocence. So the field has nothing to do with guilt or innocence versus we cannot decide what or who is guilty or innocent using reason. We are saying that the field, that area has got nothing to do with who is guilty or innocent. It is not about whether we can decide who is guilty or innocent or not. Okay, so we can decide, but the field is not even talking about that area, is not even talking about who's guilty or who's innocent. That does not apply to that area. So A looks similar to the first reason, but in reality it is not. Okay, B, because reason and non-reason do not exist just as a binary. A binary is where you have just two choices, A or B. So for example, the existence of a person is binary. Okay, I am going to be either alive or dead. You study in an I am or you do not, right? So that's binary. Now look at the second and the third reason. Second says it is senseless to refer to reason as the contrary entity to non-reason. So it's senseless to treat them as binary. And then look at the last one as well, third as well, either the rationalist or the irrationalist. So option B at least goes on to capture the second reason well. Let's look at option C because the exercise would be very tedious, not mentioned. D and E are once again not stated. So in reality, three reasons are stated. B is one of those three reasons. It's a paraphrasing. A is a distortion. It looks similar to the first reason but is not. C, D, E and E are not mentioned. That is why our answer here should be option B. Reason is limited. Where does the paragraph say that? So go ahead, check that part and then we can discuss it further. Okay, question number 5. Which of the following about the role of philosophy in human society is not true according to the passage? I'd emphasize this. Not true. Go back to the right area, read it, come back and then we'll see. So what's your take, guys? Come on, answers. Okay, so let us look at the relevant part first. So I hope that you referred to this paragraph which talked about roles of philosophy. So here is one role and here is another. So these two are true. Anything else that is stated will be not true. So let's look at first the unattainable. Unattainable, where would this come from? This is not right. So first is not true. Okay, I'll once again take you back to the relevant part and we'll see. So the second goal is called a rather high expectation. That does not translate into unattainable. So first has to be part of my answer. So my answer should be, okay, E should be only third. अरे दोनों same कैसे कर दिया मैंने? हाँ. So my answer has to be either A or C. Let's look at second. Excessive power may be historically unique but is not original, not given as a role of philosophy. Okay, and then C, to keep reason within the limits of what is given in the experience. Yes, according to Kant, that was a primary role. So third is true, first and second are not true, and that is why our answer should be option C. So there you go. That's about our passage. आज accuracy थोड़ी कम रही है ना, but keep working hard. I'm sure we can shape up and become better. And because that has a poem, let me share a haiku, a lovely haiku. Haiku is a type of a poem with you before we move on. I write, erase, rewrite. Erase again and then a poppy blooms, said Katsushika Hokusai. So if you liked working with me, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And another reminder that you're supposed to write All India Open Mock the moment this session ends, and you can also consider joining our CAT 23 program, which has produced great results. To make it easy for you, we are offering you 3 days of free access, trial access to our courses. Along with that, you can also write a scholarship test. And see, we are not just about the CAT. We are also starting a crash course for NMAT, and whatever we cover in NMAT will also be relevant for all these other exams like TISNET, Maharashtra CET as well. So you can definitely consider this too if CAT is not your primary focus. Okay, so that's it from me today. I look forward to meeting you guys in our next session really very soon. Until then, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch, and keep working hard. Okay. Take care. Enjoy your day ahead.